Ben here again, and today I'd like to take you through another song from Big Iron's new release, Blues plus Power equals Destiny. And today's song is going to be And after replicating those drum fills into the scratch chord, what I tend to do is I imply the wah-wah, which frees up the hand so I don't necessarily have to actually hit either the bass or the treble particularly, because the scoop is conducted through the wah-wah going from bass to treble. And what I'm doing here is I'm doing a dugga-dugga, going for a 16th note rhythm, and when I come to the 4, I come to dugga 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 4. When I hit the 4, I actually release the wah-wah fully up into a full quack position, which should sound a little bit like this. So you have to be really careful about is where you're actually dampening your hand, because at certain points you will get natural harmonics come through, especially on the 4th, the 5th and the 7th. So what I tend to do is actually cut it right around about in the middle, so it's more or less completely dead. And then what you can also do, which is quite cool, because you've got the use of the 4th, the 5th and the 7th around that mid region, is that you can imply harmonics where you want. Right, looking at the chorus, very, very standard verb. It just goes from the G5 chord, sliding into D, and then what I do is I take the octave shape, I slide that down a semitone, implying the C sharp, which actually plays, once again, that A chord, but with slash C sharp in the bass. And then I put a whacker effect onto my octave shape, which I can either put, let's say, on my 5th fret from D, or let's say going back to 10th fret on the E, and I get this effect. Now to get the muted effect in between, rather than actually palm muting, I actually release the hand here so that I've still got my position, but actually blunts the string, so you get that very scratch chord attack to it, and then kind of attach it back on. And that slides intermittently between D and the E, which on the A string is 5th fret to 7th, on the E string is 10 to 12, which should go a little bit like this. As you're probably seeing within this song, there's an awful lot of use of hybrid scales and filling out the skeleton of the minor pentatonic. So what I'd like to do is start back through the basics, just showing you the key position of the minor pentatonic that I'm using, and then building on the hybrid intervals on from there. To start off, I'm just going to pinpoint the minor pentatonic based around the 12th fret. Now each of these movements, what I'll be doing is I'll be stepping up from the root to the octave, and then going from root octave to the 2nd octave, which should sound a little like this. Let's say using the minor pentatonic as the first example. You do with each of these scales is approach it in this method, because it really helps develop muscle memory and your cohesive movements through any of these particular licks. So that would be the minor pentatonic scale. Let's have a look at the blues scale. Of the blues scale with added 2nd and 6th. with the 2nd, the 6th, and also major 7th. To actually fill in the spaces here, but once again, it's just developing those cohesive muscle memory moments. If you actually start from the minor pentatonic, build onto the blues, and then fill in the key intervals of, let's say, the 2nd, the 6th, and the 7th, you'll feel much more comfortable. And remember, the great thing about the guitar is that it's a wonderfully symmetrical instrument, basically meaning patterns everywhere. So you can actually move these patterns in one place to another and get some really, really great licks. So the important thing is, obviously establish your grounding, but do have fun with it. Right, let's have a look at the guitar solo. The main premise of this is based on, let's say, ideas like guitarists like Joe Perry from Aerosmith would use, using the minor pentatonic as the backbone, but then fill in the gap with various hybrid notes. So check it out, it sounds a little bit like this. Is E minor pentatonic, and I'm using the G string going from the 12th fret and then hammering on to the 13th, which basically is amending my flat third to a major third, and then putting the pinky on the 15th fret of B, and then putting a little rolling lick where I put in some passing notes implying, let's say, my flat 6th, which is here on my 13th, going down to the 5th, putting my blues tritone note in on my 15th fret of my G, stepping down the pentatonic, 14 to 12, and then going to root. Which is a real Perry-esque lick. Great fun to play, a little bit of a tongue twister. And then putting a big bend on, let's say, the top E. And then pulling off. The next line I tend to do here is, once again, keeping more of a hybrid feel. Applying that third to a major third, gives it a real rock and roll feel. A la, let's say, guitarists like Chuck Berry. It goes a little bit like this. That particular line is rolling legato. I pick on the G string, hammering onto the 13th fret, and then step up through a rolling double stop bar with my first finger. So I actually get the separation of those notes. So rather than bringing out as a chord, I actually bring out separately. There's a symmetrical pattern which goes a little bit like this, and then kind of going into the adjacent string on 15th, then coming back to the root note there on the 12th. And that's pretty much how it goes. What I suggest you do, once again, is taking each of these phrases and just taking it very, very slowly as a separate entity on its own. Next comes some rolling 16th note triplet action, which takes a chromatic pattern, stepping from... And I tend to only hit the notes in 8th notes once again, so it's like a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And what I'm trying to do is, every time I hit it, I'm capturing 3 notes, which in total would equal 6 notes per pulse, so it's quite fast. Rolling into symmetrical shape, keeping that same speed for 16th note triplet, but spreading my fingers out between 12, 14 and 15, using my first, second and third finger. I do a little legato trick between the first and the second finger, landing back into 8th notes, going across the 15th and 12th, and then doing a full tone bend to tie the lick off. At this particular point in the solo, there's a key change. When we started off in E, we are now going to be approaching A. Hopefully outlines the dominant arpeggio, which would be of first, third, fifth, and flat 7. The little tail I do there is I take the 14th fret, I do a little semitone bend, and then do a little bit legato, pull off back into the 12th fret, and then landing back into my root note here on the G string. Next line, very Satriani inspired. I take the 15th fret here onto my top E, do a little quick full tone bend, and then drop it straight back down with a bit of grace, bring it building up, and then apply a tap going across my highest fret, which would be about my 22nd, and then actually start to drop down in diatonic intervals, going from my 15th, my 14th, my 12th, and my 10, and dropping down as far as I can really. Now the picking, to actually get the speed, rather than actually using the tip of my finger and actually give it a slightly more visceral attack, I actually use the edge of my pick. Players that pioneered this sort of style would be players like Ace Frehley and also John Sykes. That gives it a really nasty attack. Rather than actually keeping it as a set pace, actually contrived pace, it's more like a nervous tick. So I'm trying to go as fast as I can to actually keep the effect, because the actual pace is dictated from the movement of my fingers, not actually through the tap. Tap really just gives it its colour. You can go slowly. But it's not terribly clean. If you're using, let's say, tip of your finger, it gives a smoother feel, but to actually get that speed and keep that velocity, that's why I use the edge of the pick. Next part is a typical kind of slash line where I do a bend, going on the top E, going up a full tone, and then rather than actually picking each note separately, I actually do an economy sweep going from the E string and then the B, pulling off from the 15th to the 12th, which gives more of a 16th note effect to it. And it intermixes between, let's say, 8th notes and 16th. And then going from that is once again 16th note triplet, running from 15th, 14th and 12th, and then resolving onto my note of G, which sometimes I will place here on the 12th fret of my G, or I will actually step down to my 8th fret on my B. Right, well, I hope you enjoyed the video. There's quite a lot of ideas there to go through, so do take your time with it and take it in baby steps. Key thing is to make sure you actually got progression from each section you go into. So advance forward and keep it rocking. So hope you enjoyed the video, and tune in and stay inspired.